the Zoom number, Andy? I can text her just to call. Is it on that? It's not pulling up on my. Oh, she's in there. Hey, Lori, you hear us? Lori, you hear us?
Audience so much better.
Oh, I hear you. You hear us?
Oh, you hear the fishing rods? Yeah, I can hear you.
And Jason, I think I heard you already. You can hear us okay?
Jason, you still with us?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear. I do see Lori McWilliams. Her signal is not full strength the whole time. It's kind of varying. Just a heads up. I don't know how you guys hear me.
You're clear. For now.
Okay.
Just if we need to. All right. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call tonight's meeting to order. It's 6:01 p.m., July 22nd, 2025, and this is our second budget workshop. Lori, can I get roll call?
Mayor Young,
Here.
Vice Mayor Sartori,
Here.
Councilmember Brandon. She's on.
Here via Zoom.
Councilmember Painter.
Here.
Councilmember French.
Here via Zoom.
I am. All right, hold on a second. Let me see what I can do there. Oh, you guys are all muted.
Is that on purpose?
No.
Okay, and our only agenda item tonight is to review the budget. So, Jeremy, I will give you the floor.
All right. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is our second budget workshop. The first one was really a preliminary. We've since got our final ad valorem numbers, and I think we have a more complete budget to present tonight. As you guys know, the budget process, and this document is a good review, a planning document for staff to use as a roadmap in the coming years. Just a little bit of review of our the timeline and what meetings we've went through, and you guys have all been here and been a part of those. Millage rate, the history, we have no planned millage increase this year, overall increase of 8.4% in taxable values. Significant portion of that is due to new construction, other property sales, selling resets to save our home exemption. The homestead property is limited to 2.9% cap, which is the CPI. More than 61% of the village residential units have a homestead protection. Non-said homestead property is limited to 10% increase, as well as a commercial property is limited to 10%. The millage rate over time, you can see that we've had a steady millage rate, and even over time, it has been reduced due to other taxing agencies, and the village has held a very steady millage rate over time. Just some significant changes since the first budget workshop. The increase in general fund revenues net is a $31,000. This is the increased valuations that we received July 1st. It went up $64,000. We did have a contractual decrease as far as budget. The council will see here the updated JIC contract. They have approved the extension for an additional 20 years to that contract. So while you guys have not approved it yet, we have went ahead and projected that in the budget, and it's a reduction of $32,000. An increase in the general fund expenditures. We've decreased the personnel costs. We did some adjustments based on union contracts and what we're projecting for salaries for non-union. We have increased the budget, $25,000 expenditure for our 250-year celebration that we plan on next July 4th or thereof, right around that time. We did not plan for that originally, or we had to fill that hole so we can make sure we have a good celebration. And then we're taking that difference and allocating it to fund balance of $59,108. Increase in building fund revenues, increase appropriate fund balance of $4,490, increase the expenditures $4,490, and then law enforcement making that adjustment of $20,000, and then we also decrease the allocate to fund balance. This is a summary of all funds, and so you'll see the proposed 25-26 total budget represents a $4,333,625 increase over last year, mainly due to proposed and actual increase in public safety salaries and personnel costs, and increase in capital expenditures and infrastructure improvements. The general fund itself is mainly $1 million due to salaries and personnel costs for public safety, and then an additional $400,000 for non-represented CWA. We also have an increase in transfers of $550,000. You guys have seen this slide before. Not much has changed since the last workshop, but just a kind of a pie chart of where our expenditures go. You will see that, you know, a 62%, a large portion of our expenditures goes to salaries and benefits. Proposed revenues is a breakdown. A large portion of our revenue is funded through general property taxes, 63%, and then you have our other, like franchise, 3%, other taxes 7%, and then some other miscellaneous revenues that we have in there. The general fund, this shows our fund balance history. As you guys know, over the years, we've tried to build this fund balance up. And so with the proposed expenditures, even the proposed expenditures using fund balance, we are projecting $357,000 over our 3-month target. So financially we're in good shape. Impact to millage over, if we leave the millage rate the same as 6.4595, the average home of $600,416, we'll see an increase of $109 for the year. And so that's if we leave the millage rate the same. Building fund, this is very similar to last month when we presented the budget. So the total budget is $1,287,000, has our permit fees $698,000, and we're going to use a fund balance of $564,000. Just to let you know where we're at, we're still expecting our ending unrestricted net position to be $286,000, and this shows kind of where we project over our 6-month target expenditure of $243,000 over. Other governmental funds, as you guys know, we have a capital improvement fund, and we have a capital projects fund, which is capital projects fund is funded from our general fund, where the capital improvement fund is funded from our infrastructure surtax and our water utility tax. Capital improvement program, just kind of just the overview of all of our projects. We have, over the life of these, we have $37 million worth of projects. Some of these are in different fund, water, building, general fund, so it's kind of broken out. You have this in your backup. Obviously, if you have questions with any of these projects, I think we gave you guys this time around, we gave you guys the full list and the detailed breakdown of each of these projects to get you guys a little more detail. Capital Improvement Fund, you'll see that after this year, the 301 Fund, as you guys know, as of December, that will sunset, and so we will cease to see the revenue from that. And so it would be upon us to fund those capital projects in the future. We will still have some utility tax revenue that will help fund some projects, but it will definitely be, I think, $650,000 less for capital projects. We are estimating our in balance to be $323,000. At the end of this, we're planning on using this 323. We are going to see some infrastructure costs for Northcom come into play, so we do have to have some money set aside. So we are showing this as future infrastructure for Northcom. Obviously, if we have some some decisions to make when that comes about using our special law enforcement fund, if we have some additional funds there, maybe we can offset some of those. We'll have to check on the legality of those, but at the end of the day, we have $323,000 set aside for some infrastructure costs for Northcom. The Project 303 fund, this is where we get into the general fund is moving some money over to the 303 fund to fund projects. The two that you guys are well aware of is the 5-year road CIP, $710,000, and the sidewalk, $170,000. We've set those aside for the last 2 years, kind of ingrained in what we do in that $880,000. We also have Tequesta Park Maintenance Facility of $250,000, and then the two that we're funding from reserves, or we have proposed to fund from reserves, is Remembrance Park Phase 2 and the Old Dixie improvements, the $1.4 million. Enterprise funds, so you guys will see our net position at the end of 26 be $8 million. We are planned a rate increase of 3.5%. That was the what we've set out, I think, 3 years ago. We had a 5-year plan for the rate to increase. The water treatment plant upgrades and energy resource improvements, $7.3 million. The membrane replacement of 1.125, and then the water main replacement of Phase 2 Beach Road, 4.7. These are projects that, two of those are SRF funding that we have got, and you council has approved those. So hopefully this year we'll be moving forward with those and get those off the books. So more than, I think, $10 million is SRF funding that we're planning on moving forward with. This came up at the last meeting, so I just included it in the backup, but this is just our rates compared to others in the area. You'll see they were pretty competitive. We do include a capital charge in ours, which moves us over to the right a little bit. I will say that, this is pretty up to date, but this does not include any proposed increases that the other municipalities are planning this year. So it is possible we would move, to the left or right, depending on what the other municipalities do. But I think it shows that we're still pretty competitive and our rates aren't, out of line. Refuse and recycling, we are recommending an annual assessment of 8.38%, which is roughly $19.56 a year, or $1.63 a month per residential dwelling unit. Waste management increases 4.88 per contract, and so we are recommending additional 3.5%. 3.5%. The state mandates our expense that we have to notice this every year, so there's an additional $4,000 in costs that we started incurring last year, and then of course to recoup our costs that we lose from as part of a non-ad valorem assessment on the tax bill. If a resident pays early, there's a credit given to them, and so to offset those costs for the people that are paying early, we are recommending a 3.5% increase. If you look at what our rates, where our rates fall compared to the proposed, now mind you, these rates here are I think I put at the bottom, the chart does not represent rates prior to October 1 of 2024. We got these rates from Waste Management prior to last year's engagement. So some of these municipalities, their rates may be higher, but even without the increased rates that the other municipalities have adopted, you'll see that we're still competitive. Stormwater, you guys are well aware of our, our challenge with stormwater. We do have 3 projects that we are funding or propose to fund in the budget this year. We have a rate increase of 5%, which equates to $57 a month for single-family residents. We're planning on transferring half of the utility tax which is $135,000 to the stormwater fund. And then,
Chairman, please correct that to 57 cents a month, not $57.
oh, that's what somebody was whispering about over there. So it was almost kind of messed me up, but yes, I'm sorry. It equates to 57 cents a month. And so I apologize. Thank you for catching me. I don't want anybody to take that out of context there. The vehicle replacement fund, this is something we adopted last year. And just to, I did get some questions, so I do want to clarify this a little bit. So every year, and this started, I don't get my years, maybe 2003. We every year we receive roughly $270,000 per contract from Palm Beach County to provide service to the unincorporated area. Back in 2023, we decided we were going to take half of that money, and that money goes toward replacing our large vehicles in fire. And so it's roughly $135,000 that we've been putting aside for the last 3 years for that. So in the vehicle replacement fund, it's really tiered, 3 different tiers. You got your water or utility services. They fund their own trucks. They set aside their own money that goes into this plan. The building fund has money that comes out and goes into this fund. And then we have the general fund. And the general fund is broken down 2 different ways. It's broken down with this $135,000 that goes into it for large vehicles, and the rest of it that we have set aside, $250-something a year, goes toward the small vehicles. And so when I have a little asterisk up here that says large rescue, large vehicle fire, a rescue vehicle fire is a large purchase. That's part of the $135,000 that we have set aside for the last 3 years. And so the idea is that every time one of these vehicles come up, and we have 5 large vehicles, that we have the funds set aside, and we base it off of the money that Palm Beach County gives us. So it is separate, that we have set aside every year, and should be treated that way. But these are the vehicles that we have lined up, that we have on a rotation. We'll note, like the building vehicle this year, we have planned to replace the building official vehicle, and we plan on depreciating the value of that, and then allowing the COPs to take over that vehicle, because they are in need of a vehicle. So instead of us purchasing another vehicle out of the general fund, we're going to move that vehicle over to the COP vehicle. So, and I think it'll be better, because obviously it'd be a little higher instead of the Prius that they have to get in and out of, and I think it hopefully hold up a little bit longer. Just the budget decision points during the July 10, 2025 Village Council meeting. Village Council set the millage rate 6.4595, and they also set the public hearings of September 4th and September 11th. With the millage rate the way it is, Village Council will need to approve the fixed millage rate for the budget hearing based upon the legal requirements. So millage rate up to 6.3096 will take a simple majority vote. Millage rate from 6.3097 to 6.9406 is 2/3 vote of the governing body. A millage rate of over 6.94 is a unanimous vote of the governing body. And then millage rate requiring referendum, it wasn't specified, but I don't think we'll be in that conversation. We've already set the maximum tax rate. So don't know that we need to go through it. I did send this out to council just to recap. Nothing much has changed in just our priority plan. As you guys know, we adopted these in February, March. We prioritize and rank these. I have put together slides that show how we have funded these priorities. I can go through them again if I get requested to, but I think you guys have these in your backup, and I've also sent these out individually. So I think it's on the agenda, and so if anybody has any questions, I can answer those. And I think the citizens have those and can sort through those as well. With that, we can answer any questions. I have some other slides if we want to get, if the questions come up, if we want to get into any details, but I think, maybe the best approach, and it's up to you guys, but Jeff is here and he can help answer any budget questions. Marjorie's here with any water questions, and I think the rest of it we can kind of tackle, but with that, I'll leave it up to you guys.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. Council, open it up for discussion.
Let
Get started if you'd like. One of you can get started if you would like.
Thank you. Staff always does an amazing job with this, and it is a lot of numbers and a lot of math. So thank you for really making it understandable. I'm in favor of just about everything that we've discussed. I am concerned with the sunset of the surtax at the end of the year and the rising cost of salaries and collective bargaining. And I think we need to plan now for or anticipate the staffing model changes for fire and I don't want to say police, but for the fire based on what is happening on a larger scale. And out of the 303 fund, the Remembrance Park Phase 2 of $1.3 million, what does that entail? What is included in that 1.3? Did I miss that somewhere?
So let me, I
Yeah,
have a
high
slide
level.
for this. Let's see if it covers the questions that you want, but, really this was set aside, or the plan for this was set aside a couple of years ago. We approved basically the Parks Master Plan. And so as you guys can see, we've already done Phase 1 and it was built off of, Phase 1 was, the plans were designed based off of that master plan. Same thing with Phase 2. The idea with Phase 2 is that we'd be able to connect it and provide a walking path that went all the way around, but ultimately connect us to Riverside. We put together a pond, little detention area. The first, and I have this at the bottom as a proposal, as maybe something that, and I know there was some discussion, but the $1.3 million was the construction cost. We set aside last year, or this budget year, it was $106,000. I think I was correct, it was $103, but $106,000 for planning design of Phase 2. We decided we were going to wait and kind of let this play through. I think, with a compromise or a consideration would be, because I know there's been some comments about, letting this park grow a little bit, see how it's utilized, is that we hold off. We plan for it, but hold off on the planning stage until maybe March or April. Let staff analyze the use of the park, and then after that, after the plans are done, we come back and council can consider moving forward or not at that point. And I think from the conversations that I've had, maybe that's the best path that we consider, but I mean, I'll leave that up to you guys and direction from you guys.
I appreciate that, because that's kind of where I'm headed right now, is putting a pause on the Phase 2, especially the construction. If we've already got the money allocated for planning, maybe wait till the second half of the fiscal year. We've got new grass. We've got to see what we've got irrigated properly, what the maintenance costs are as any of the trees begin to mature, what that cost will be and what we anticipate that to be. So I'd like to kind of just table that right now, that $1.3 million expense, keep in all the other stuff that is out of in the 303 fund, the Old Dixie improvements. I just think there's a lot going on right now that we're so unsure of. And we don't know what the usage is going to be like. Are people going to use the park? Are they going to walk it? Should we do what we have already planned? So I'm on board with everything. I just think with the anticipated loss of the surtax, our annual increase in staffing, which I applaud because we have to pay our people well. But I think at the expense of the park, I want to make sure that we have our staffing models in place for the next several years, based on every 3 years with our collective bargainings. That's what's giving me heartburn right now. It keeps you up at night is that 1.3 for Remembrance Park. But everything else, by and large, I'm on board with. So maybe something will come up with one of my colleagues and might opine again, but I just wanted to throw that out there. That's kind of where I'm at on this thing right now.
And just for everybody's, I guess, just clarity, this money proposed for not the 106 or the 103, but the $1.3 million was going to come out of reserves. So at this point, it's a one-time expense. You don't want to use those reserves for operations or even staffing. So we got to be very careful that we say, oh, we're going to have $1.3 million for staffing, because that's not what you want to do for recurring costs. However, obviously any safety blanket or anything, shortfalls, that's what that money could be used for. So, I'd be interested to hear if that's what the rest of the council wants to do, is hold off on that, and you guys, give me direction.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. I wasn't clear in my intent. It was not to pay staffing or anything out of the reserve, but have, have it there for that rainy day, because we still don't really know what that's going to look like yet. The park usage.
Yeah, I mean, I brought this up at the last budget workshop that I really wasn't in favor of spending any money on Remembrance Park, even the planning right now, because I do think we need to wait a year to see how it's utilized and the maintenance and, O&M costs, what those are going to be on that park, because it might change the design a little bit even, right? So I don't even want to spend the money on the design. I don't think waiting a year is that big of a deal, and even knowing, and I clearly understood the last meeting as well, that money was coming out of reserves, I still have concerns and think we should keep that money in reserves for now until we get a better gauge on what is going on with potential property tax reform, which is still being discussed. And I know I mentioned FEMA last meeting, and since then, Mary Blakeney said what she's heard now is FEMA's potentially increasing the threshold by 4. So now the county as a whole needs to meet a threshold of like $6 to $7 million. Is that? I think that's where it's at, Jeremy. Is that right?
That sounds right.
And before we get reimbursed, and so now there's potentially $28 million before we get reimbursed, which means we would want to maybe carry more reserves than we do now if that ends up being the case. The DOJ efforts, our state DOJ efforts are still underway, as you guys all know, as Jeff knows. He did a lot of work for that this week. Thank you. And then, the infrastructure sunsetting. And really, we've had, a really large increase in salaries that we haven't seen since I've been on council. And, what that future looks like long term. I'm just really not comfortable with spending that money from reserves right now.
Anything else? Okay. No, I would agree. I mean, it's very cool to see phase 1 complete, and it's really cool that we were able to get that accomplished. And I do look forward to one day seeing the connectivity between Riverside and Seabrook. That'll be really cool, and I'm sure we will get there one day. But I tend to agree, given just where we are with everything and uncertainty of everything, I think it would be wise to hold off, let it breathe for a little bit, live in the phase 1 for a while, see what we like, what we don't like, and it could very much alter our plans for phase 2 and phase 3 in the future. So I'm in favor of holding off on the design and the construction. I don't think there's any sense in putting too much out into the design just yet either. But I do think the Old Dixie improvements, that would be great to see. So I'm keeping that in there. I think that's all good. That's really all I have. I'll second what Rick said. Thank you for making this understandable. I'm not great with math, as I always say, or numbers generally. So I really appreciate you guys making it easy to digest for us. Thank you.
Before Jason or Lori, I just want to, one more point of clarity. The planning stage for this was coming out of the CIP. So it's also not another general fund that we just saved $103,000 if we decide not to move forward. It's in our CIP fund for capital projects only. So just want to clarify that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Councilmember Brandon or French?
Yes, I can go first. Thank you guys for supporting attendance via Zoom. It really allows me to be at family events, but still handle village business. So I do appreciate that. And staff has done a great job at making this simple, but also during the year, not transferring funds around just to cover other shortfalls or just making a quick transfer to make a solution. And so I appreciate that through the year also. On Old Dixie Highway, support the previous comments. I would also like to inquire, now that county leadership has changed, if it would be a good time to maybe revisit that match for Old Dixie and to see if they have the appetite now maybe to assist us a little bit as their residents, use that road as well. I don't know where the conversations left off or with whom, So maybe an inquiry there if that opportunity arises. And then Remembrance Park, I think my opinion differs from everyone else so far. I support moving forward with Remembrance Park this year 100%. Phase 1 was absolutely a complete success. Just a really great job from start to finish. What a great park it is for our residents. And I think the park, any park, meets the top requests we hear from residents. Build more parks and buy more green space, right? And this is a very inexpensive way to check that off for our residents. And I do understand taking the time to kind of identify the use. You know, it is a passive park, so there's only, so much use to be done there. But I am afraid that delaying it will risk pushing it off indefinitely, or like we saw with the first phase 1, I think it was like 14 years since it was named, and trying to avoid that at all costs. And the 1.3 million, I think that we talked about a little bit, but we do need to identify a use for it or increase reserves. And I think that should be the discussion, where we want to stand on Remembrance Park and what are we going to do with that. How are we going to hold that money in the meantime? Are we going to leave it for phase 2? Are we going to increase reserves, or what does that look like? And I say that because I think for the employees and the residents, right, that's a sizable sum of money that's kind of sitting off to the side there, and I think we need to be clear with our use of it. Those are my only 2 things, and I'd like to hear some more discussion on Remembrance Park as we go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Brandon?
Thank you guys in the middle of absolute nowhere. Jeremy, the vehicle replacement fund, does that include the police car?
Yes, ma'am. I think going back to it, I think we have 3 planned for this coming year. 3 of them. Yep.
So Old Dixie, I would actually bump that down the list because we've attempted Old Dixie beautification, and it always never seems to go well. If we had to prioritize a few things, I would bump that one down. I hear mixed feedback from residents on the second phase of Remembrance Park. Many of them say, hey, that's so cool that we're going to connect it. Are we doing that this year? And then the other half says, let's wait. And I totally respect both sides. I fully understand both sides. With my experience, I would hate for us not to do anything with phase 2 because it probably would never get done for another 10 years. So my question to all of you and staff would be what it would look like if we broke phase 2 into its own multiple phases. What could be done in phase 1 that allows connectivity in a safe manner, and then save the bigger elements like that little deck bridge that goes over the retaining pond, those things for last. But what would it look like at a minimum cost construction to just start it in a safe manner, and then that way it gets us 1 foot on the line for each year rather than just keep kicking it down the road because it'll probably never get done. And that's my 2 cents for today.
Okay, is any other council comments?
No, I don't have any.
I have none.
Yeah, and I just, another thing too to keep in mind with parks, we are, hopefully it's officially kicked off now. I know I signed the contract last week with Kimley Horn for DeQuesta Park. And I think at the next council meeting, are we talking about the local bill or resolution on it?
That'll be at the next August council meeting. We'll be talking about the local bill for DeQuesta Park.
So depending on how that discussion goes, there's potential for more money to be spent for good reason at DeQuesta Park, maybe down the road too. We'll see. Like I said, we'll see where it goes. But again, another reason maybe to kind of just wait and see on Remembrance Park. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff in flux right now for me, and I just don't. I agree. Like I 100% want to see it happen. It was so amazing and exciting to see phase 1 come to life, and most of the feedback I have received from residents as well, they are excited to see phase 2 happen eventually. But again, I think we need to be fiscally responsible with everything else that's going on right now. A couple other things I just wanted to have on record. because I did follow up with staff and had a lot of conversations on some of my questions. The last meeting, which we're satisfied, I know with the refuse recycling fund, I had asked the kind of 3 scenarios that were presented to us in November to be updated and presented to us again, but after staff revisited them, I think one is totally not doable now because we already sent out the notices for 4%. Or can you explain what that, the one that is like a moot point scenario now?
Yeah, so we presented back in November, we provided a couple of scenarios that to consider. One was like a 4%. I can pull this up so I say it accurately, but what's being referred to is we had a couple scenarios that we presented after looking at it. A couple of these we presented, we've noticed a 3.5% increase, so we cannot go over that 4.8 plus the 3.5 that we have. So you could always go down from there, but because we've noticed 3.5 plus the 4.8, we can't go higher. So back in November, we did present some options, but after looking at it, we have a recommendation, but you guys can still look at these. At that time, we're looking at 5%, which I think it's 4.88 or something. And so these are the scenarios that were provided to council. So year one or scenario one was like a 4% increase. Can't do that. We'd have to be less than 3.5. So that scenario wouldn't play in right now. And then were some scenarios of a 2% increase, year two a 2%, and then year three a 1%. What you'll see why we didn't recommend that one is you see our reserves got down to $592. It's cutting it pretty close, especially not knowing how many people will pay early on their tax bill. And then also, year two of that, you're looking at a negative balance. So that one didn't play either, and we didn't recommend that one. We did have this one, which was 3%, 2%, and then for years 1 and 2, did give us a little bit healthier. Because of the state requirement for us to notice these of $4,000, we chose 3.5%. So if you wanted to choose another scenario, this scenario would play. You can do a 3%. It cuts us a little closer to where our reserves are. But if council wanted to do that, I think your cost, you would save. The residents would save a little bit. It would have to have that calculation. I'm not sure what that savings is at this point, but. So really, one other scenario was at play based on what we presented and what we have.
It was 1956 or 65 for 3.5%.
The one that's proposed right now is 19.
And it's 1867 there, so it'd be a very small annual difference.
Right. What is the long-term plan with this 3.5%? Is that, because here you had different percentage scenarios, right? Or was that
Correct.
It was 3 and then 2. So what is a 5-year plan with the proposed right now? Is it just going to be 3.5 or 3.5 every year going forward?
I hope not, but I'd like to see, how much it costs us for the notifications, what the money is coming in looks like. I'd like to increase it as little as possible, because no one likes an increase, and I certainly don't like to stand up here and ask you for an increase. Neither one of us think that's fun to do. So we're hoping that 3.5 will give us a little breathing room, and we can readdress it maybe in a couple years, and so we can skip along a little bit.
So you anticipate the 3.5 for more than 1 year, though? The extra 3.5?
I don't expect one next year, but it'll be between 5 and 6%, depending on what the CPI change is for our contracted amount.
Okay. Yeah, so I wanted to revisit them because I remember them, and to me, if we can provide relief and maybe spread the cost a little bit, I know it's like, well, it's just $1, and even with all the fees and ad valorem increase this year, it's kind of like, well, it's just this. But I'm like, well, it was on top of just that last year and just that the year before. It's these small increases every year that they really pile up. And so, I know it might not seem like a lot of savings, but I feel like at times, at the end of the day, we're here to work for the residents. And I think if we can provide them relief ever, that we should always look into doing that. But I mean, especially since one of the three scenarios is the only applicable one, and the difference right now is like $1. I mean, I guess I'm comfortable with this recommendation. I really appreciate you guys revisiting this and like walking through it again. And yeah, I mean, hopefully the 3.5 is just for this year and not, but when will we have an idea on that? Because I know after we approved the waste management contract last year, like this was presented to us pretty quickly after. So will you have a good idea on that sooner than later, like after the fiscal
I'll have
year?
a good idea when I see how the money comes rolling in from the non-ad valorem tax part from the county. So we get roughly 91% by February, and that'll give us a pretty good idea how it's coming in or not coming in
Okay.
at that time. But that'll be as soon as you'll want me to project it. Otherwise, I'll say we need an increase. So I would give me time to look at how it's really coming in so that I have a better handle and a better feeling.
Okay, so February. And then, thank you. And then on the, I had some questions on the water utility projects. I couldn't tell if some were a complete rollover from last year versus some money was spent and this is an addition. And I think it was 4 or 5 projects are a complete rollover. And there is about 1.5 million in increased cost, but after talking to staff, most of it's out of our control, and some of the scope creep is definitely for efficiencies in that 1.5 million. So I think it's good that you have identified those. But I know it stinks because there are cost increases too, and now I know you mentioned like tariff cost increases. So the longer projects, the more they're pushed, the more expensive they get. So I know you guys are doing everything you can to try to get them done on time as we originally planned. But yeah, they were all complete rollovers, but they were well justified. So thank you for clarifying that from last meeting. And then the other thing is the 3 swale projects. I walked them the day after the meeting to understand them better because those kind of caught me off guard. And I'm in support of those. They are very large areas with I think maybe one of them, you might have to move some stuff out of the way. The only thing I know, you guys said you haven't like shot any elevations of the street or anything nearby, and you're kind of going with your expertise, which I trust. But if there's any, to me, I've like had roads repaved because the elevations are off, and the water didn't end up going where it was supposed to. So I just want to make sure if we're spending that money that we're really sure that water is going to flow where it's supposed to. Okay, that was it. Just really want to follow up with some of my questions and just have it on record that they were answered, and I'm good with everything.
Just for maybe the sake of discussion and just make sure we're kind of all trending in the same direction, part of the budget. And so just want to address a couple points. Mr. Frentz addressed Old Dixie and revisiting the county. We can do that. We can see if, there's been any kind of change in direction over there. But the Old Dixie project that we have, as you guys know, is to really not focus on the medians, but mostly focus on, the right-of-way area. We did reach out to Kimley Horn many months ago. It's interesting that Ms. Brandon brought that up about phasing phase 2. I asked them for Doug and I and Mr. Jonathan Hay met out there, asked for a phase of a phase, and he gave us a breakdown of roughly $670,000 to do a phase of it and just do a trail that connects us all the way through. We had to put some fencing around it, mobilization, sidewalk, trail, part of it. And so there is an option of providing a phase of a phase if council wanted to do that. Obviously, there's still some planning costs that we'd have to look at. I think the planning cost was $75,000 to do that, and so that's an option. The other thing for just, I guess, for make sure everybody understands, and I think everybody's on board in my conversations. We are looking at remodeling Station 11. We are breaking that project into really a couple different funds. The building fund, we're going to have code compliance and building inspections over there in part of it. Special law enforcement, they're going to be purchasing office equipment. They're out of the bay. They're going to be doing some of the training and utilizing that facility. And they will also be able to use a special law enforcement fund to run fiber over to that building. And it will help extend cameras to Remembrance Park, which currently we do not have because we don't have fiber out there. So I think that's an interesting aspect to this project, being able to extend fiber over there. And then the general fund using some of the money, and I'm gonna go into a little bit the maintenance facility that we're moving out to Tequesta Park. We have Doug has worked pretty hard about getting us a different look at some different costs. So we are proposing a metal building, but obviously trying to make it look the part. If you've been out there now, we have like 4 little makeshift, terrible looking buildings out there. I think this is a very good option for us, and obviously keeping the cost down with a metal building installed, which includes the engineering costs. We're talking about $36,000, and it is hurricane proof. It is hurricane ready. I did break down a little bit more of the cost with electrical and the slab and all that. I mean, we're looking at $100,000 and we're budgeting $250,000. So there may be some additional funds that we can use with Station 11 to help with landscaping and the parking lot, and also putting some landscaping out here. So I think the budget number is going to hold. I know that we were concerned because we were talking about putting a brick building out there similar to the Girl Scout building, but I think this might be a different option that we can look at. Obviously put maybe different color, blend in better. If we wanted to aesthetically, maybe even put some like rock or some brick around it to make it a little more of the part, but I think the budget number is going to hold. And what I'd like to do is to get us going with this is I think they're asking for like a $7,000 deposit. Is bring it back in August. That way we can authorize the $7,000 to allow Doug to go ahead and start the permitting process and get that going, so we can kind of hit the ground running. We do have a staff member that utilizes Station 11, so there's going to be a transition period to work through. So that'll come for you guys' consideration. Obviously, I know building has some funds that they were planning on using to kind of get moving if we were going to do it. That they're going to be doing some AC and electrical work to get that building up to code. So the Old Dixie, this was part of the master plan. So, obviously we got the medians down the middle, which is kind of the county hiccup that we have. But I think, we've talked about this in part of the master plan. And so that's kind of the vision ultimately, right, is to put some green space and create a kind of environment on Old Dixie. And so I just wanted to share that picture. Just because that's a pretty neat picture if we can really, try to capture that vision long term. And then, of course, I showed you guys Remembrance Park Phase 2. And so I just wanted to share a couple of those things, make sure we're still all on the same page and everybody's, good with the plan moving forward. With that.
A question. In the proposed capital improvement fund, the Tequesta Bridge improvements of $855,000, is that the Tequesta Drive Bridge, or does that also include the Martin County?
No, that's just the Tequesta Drive Bridge, and good thing Doug
Is that all
came.
at one time? Is that all 1 year?
Yep. So originally we broke it into really 3 phases. The planning phase, which was $100,000, and then there was going to be 2 phases, and originally it wasn't $840-something thousand. But as we dove into it, we were going to break it into 2 phases and break it out. But we're using all that money out of the CIP fund. Obviously for mobilization, we can save some money. So just doing one big project, and we're talking about sandblasting steel, talking about cleaning up, repainting repainting the bridge, but that's just Tequesta Bridge. The relocation on Martin County Road that you're referring to, that's going to be out of the utility fund. We have money funded for or planned for that relocation in Martin County. So it's completely different.
And so the Tequesta Bridge should be done in this fiscal year? Awesome.
I know that's one that So maybe once every 2 months, we get a concerned resident about how bad, how shabby it kind of looks. And if you've been on a boat, you know that it's, it doesn't look great underneath it either. So I think it's definitely, and that's the aesthetic part of it. We obviously have some structural stuff that we want to address. Not that the bridge is falling down, but
Can you
just
please correct
just maintenance of the bridge. It has not been maintenance for 12 plus years, true maintenance. So I think this is some preventative maintenance. That's the word I was
Yeah,
looking for.
that's correct. We haven't really put any structural money into the bridge, so a large portion of this is structural, like the manager said. Stripping down the steel, sandblasting the steel, recoating the steel, fixing some of the columns, replacing all the expansion joints. So it's pretty comprehensive.
Will
And
that
the goal is to, move that funding this year so we can mobilize one time.
Yeah.
If we have to mobilize twice, it's going to drop our costs substantially.
Just a question not to do with the improvements, but will it involve closing the bridge?
No.
Or we'll be able to do one-way traffic, or always do two-way?
Yeah, we'll have at least one lane open at,
Okay.
certain times during the project.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Kimley, I mean, we have, Kimley Horn did the assessment, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so we have that on record saying that there's no major structural deficiencies.
We've pushed it off for 5 years.
Yeah.
So each year we keep rolling it forward, and as you mentioned before, costs have gone up, they've
Yeah,
increased, so,
we need to get it done.
yeah,
Yep.
has to get done.
And I agree, like the cleanliness, you really can't tell unless you're on a boat, on the water. But yeah, no, it needs to be done. Backing up to the prefab shed. So are we not doing the $250,000 Tequesta Park maintenance facility? It's going to be just $36,000 now.
Well, it's 36,000. If you look at the additional costs, there's another 37,000 that's rolled into it. So we feel like, just be on the safe side, we're looking at about $100,000 to get the building in, electrical, office space in there, and, or not really an office, but just really like a workspace, $100,000. And then, obviously there might be some fencing and, like some bins, some dirt bins. So, we have $250,000 budgeted, but we also, have some plans for Station 11 with the fiber runs and all that. I think we're going to be able to save some money. I think it's going to be less. I just don't have the exact number, what we're going to get there to, but because we're going to be looking at some landscaping at Station 11 and for this building that are not captured currently.
Oh, got it. Okay. Yeah, no, I'm in favor of that because I know when you first told me about that, and I was like, "What, CMU?" I even
And I
questioned,
passed
like,
that
"Why
on
are
to
you-"
Doug and Wayne. And says,
Thank you.
She doesn't think it's going to make it, so we got to make sure. So yeah.
No, I appreciate a prefab metal building like this is, I think, a really good choice for what it's going to be used
It's
for.
rated for 180-mile-an-hour winds as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think great work. Thank you for revisiting that. I appreciate that. Thinking down the road, and it has nothing to do with this budget, but again, I'm always kind of thinking down the road as we make decisions today, how it could impact future stuff that we might want to do. The mobility plan, when is that going to be done?
Yeah, Jay and I have talked a couple different times about that. He got a draft that I think he had to submit. He provided some additional comments for. I think there was some things that still need to be tweaked. So we're anticipating that coming to council in September. We got a rough draft that still needed some work done. So September is when we expect to bring that to council. A little bit, I think we originally planned for July. Obviously their council had some comments and they were going to rework it. And so that pushed it a little bit. It'd be a little forced if we brought it in August. So.
And then, so if we want to proceed with anything from that plan, what fund would that come from?
Depending on what it would be, it would typically be taken it from reserves, or we'd have to allocate money because we don't have. We're not budgeting for any project currently.
So obviously this year, but like say the following fiscal year, where would you would that be general fund money or what?
So ideally, yes, we are talking about with this mobility plan, creating a mobility fee. So when development comes in, they would have to pay a mobility fee. That would help pay for the projects that's attached to this mobility plan. Year 1, year 2, until we build up that fund, it's not going to really, I don't think really going to pay for a lot of projects at first, especially we're talking about redevelopment more than development. So yeah, most of it's just going to be a capital project that we have to fund, that we have to budget for. I mean, we'll have a little bit of money offset if we pass a mobility fee, but I don't think, it's ultimately gonna cover it.
Okay, just want to throw that out there because again, that might be something else we're gonna, when we revisit our strategic initiatives next year or the year after, like these are other things that we might want to proceed with, and our funds might be tighter than they have been the past several years. So I just want to keep that in the back of our minds as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a good point. I think in the strategic plan next year, when we meet in February or March, I think that's when we'll have those discussions. Obviously, when you guys pass this plan, you guys will be able to prioritize or make comments on them. But really, when we get in the strategic plan next year, is do we want to fund any of those, and where do we prioritize those with overall with everything? I think that's where that conversation will be had.
Okay. Any other?
I have none.
No?
Councilmember Brandon? Councilmember
I have none.
So
None for me.
No, ma'am. I am good, and I appreciate the restoration of that old building wheel. We can make it look nice and safe and actually use it to give it a purpose again. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree.
So from what I've heard, just from council, at least at this point, we're budget-wise, we'll hold off on Phase 2 Remembrance Park is really the big change that I heard, unless there was something that I missed. That was the big change that we wanted to hold off on, as far as the majority of council wanted to.
That's where I'm at, yep.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay, and I would take public comment, but there is no public here. So with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Trying to give them
Aye.
an opportunity.
Thank you guys for calling in. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for accommodating.